Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Displaced residents begin returning to northern Gaza following Israel-Hamas truce. US troops already based in West Asia to help monitor the situation in Gaza. US President Donald Trump reignites tariff war with China, announces an additional 100% tariff on goods, threatens to pull out of talks with China's President Xi Jinping. US federal shutdown enters into 11th day. Mass layoffs begin in various US government departments. Trump orders freezing of infrastructure funds for New York, California and Illinois. Eyeing farmer welfare and rural development, Prime Minister Modi launches Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana and the Mission for Atmanirbharta Impulses initiative to boost productivity, storage and credit access. Displaced residents returned to northern Gaza on Friday following the truce between Israel and Hamas. Residents are walking north along Al-Rashid Street towards Gaza City following the beginning of the ceasefire and withdrawal of Israeli troops. Huge swathes of territory in the north have been destroyed from 2 years of conflict, with nearly 3/4 of Gaza City's buildings damaged. Israel's military said it has completed the first phase of withdrawal from Gaza, although Israeli troops still occupy roughly half of the territory. Meanwhile, Hamas has until 9 GMT on Monday to release all the Israeli hostages, including 20 of who are believed to be alive, and up to 28 hostages remains, while Israel is due to release about 250 Palestinian prisoners serving life sentences. A further 1,700 Palestinians from Gaza who have been detained are also likely to be released. Residents carrying belongings and pushed carts as they headed towards Gaza City, describing the return as indescribable feeling, hoping that things remain good going forward.
It is an indescribable feeling. We are very, very happy that the conflict has stopped and the suffering has ended. It has come to us by the power of the one and only God.
We are tired, really tired. Thank God we are going back to the city. And God help us, we hope things will be good in the city and we find a corner to live in.
US President Donald Trump on Friday outlined his upcoming visits to Israel and Egypt following the Israeli government's approval of Phase 1 of the Gaza peace plan. Describing the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas as a great deal for the world, Trump said that the deal would secure the release of hostages and the return of approximately 28 bodies.
As you know, on Monday the hostages come back. They're getting them now. They're getting them now. They're in some pretty rough places under earth. They're in some pretty rough places where only a few people know where they are in some cases. So they're getting them, and they're also getting the bodies, approximately 28 bodies. And some of those bodies are being unearthed right now as we speak. They're working on it right now as we speak. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. I'll be going to Israel. I'll be speaking at the Knesset, I think, early on, and then I'm also going to Egypt.
Meanwhile, up to 200 troops already based in the West Asia will be moved to Israel to help monitor the ceasefire in Gaza. The US military will establish a multinational task force in Israel known as a Civil Military Coordination Center, which is likely to include troops from Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and the UAE. The task force will be led by US Central Command based in the region and is intended to oversee the progress of the ceasefire agreement and also help coordinate humanitarian assistance. All right, our correspondent Jessica Taneja is joining us with more from New Delhi. Jessica, we've told our viewers about how the displaced residents are now going back to Gaza. Added to that, there is also positivity and optimism among the residents and the displaced people. What next when we talk of the enclave and when we talk of the peace deal? What would be the duration of implementation of the peace deal, and what next from here on?
Well, so far, we're given to understand that there is a 72-hour period where the Israeli hostages will be released by Hamas, and in exchange for the Palestinian prisoners that have been held by Israel. So the details of that have been put out as part of the first phase of the deal. The later stages will also be determined on how effective the first phase is, because it is contentious in a sense where the release of hostages as well as exchange of prisoners could have happened a long time ago. But it took so long because there were fewer bargaining chips that both sides had, and the negotiations were certainly tense and called for very sensitive diplomatic exchanges that, of course, if you recall, were halted because Qatar was attacked by Israel, and later you heard an apology from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as well. So a lot of difficult moments in these negotiations. So, of course, the next phase would be determined on how effective in terms of implementation this phase would be, because you listen to the aid agencies, especially the UNRWA, which is the United Nations Welfare and Aid Agency. It is of the view that it needs to send out at least 600 trucks in the next 24 hours to feed the population of Gaza when nearly 2 million people are starving. This is an absolutely difficult situation where you don't have people who've been able to not have basic medical facilities, but also not food, water, and sanitation facilities. So that would be the first priority. And only after this, you'd get to the bigger and tougher questions of what happens to the statehood and how much role does the Palestinian Authority, which was the last political outfit, will have a role in the new situation or the new current technocratic administration that Donald Trump, with his 20-point peace plan, is planning to bring about. So the effectiveness of that would depend on how well the first phase is implemented, Preeti.
All right, Jessica, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details. In other news, French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday reappointed Sébastien Lecornu as the Prime Minister just 4 days after his resignation. Macron made the announcement late on Friday, hours after meeting all the main parties together at the Élysée Palace, except the leaders of the far right and the far left. Lecornu on social media platform X said after the Élysée announcement that he had accepted the mission out of duty. He further added that anyone joining his new cabinet must give up plans to run in the 2027 presidential race, promising instead renewal and diversity of skills. As the Prime Minister, Lecornu has to face an immediate test to present a draft budget bill for 2026, first to the cabinet and then on the same day to the parliament. Missing the deadline would leave lawmakers without the 70 days the Constitution grants to debate and pass the budget before year end. The Constitutional Court also requires 8 days to review the legislation. If Lecornu is brought down by a no-confidence vote, as some opponents are already promising, Parliament would need to pass emergency stopgap legislation to authorize spending, taxation and borrowing from 1st of January until a full budget is adopted. France resorted to such emergency measures last December after the then Prime Minister, Michel Barnier's government was ousted, invalidating his proposed 2025 budget. France has been mired in political stalemate since the president dissolved parliament in June 2024, triggering snap elections that produced a hung National Assembly and left Macron's centrist bloc without a majority. US President Donald Trump announced an additional 100% tariff on China on Friday, reigniting his trade war with Beijing in a row over export curbs on rare earth minerals. In a post on social media, Trump said the extra levies plus US export controls on any and all critical software would come into effect from 1st of November. Trump accused Beijing of taking an extraordinarily aggressive position on trade and warned that the United States will respond in kind. He also said that export controls will be placed on all critical software starting the same day. Trump also threatened to pull out of a meeting with China's President Xi Jinping. He later said that he had not cancelled it, but that he did not know that we are going to have it. Rare earth elements are critical to manufacturing everything from smartphones and electric vehicles to military hardware and renewable energy technology. China dominates global production and processing of these materials. Earlier, China had hit US-owned vessels docking in the country with tit-for-tat port fee in response to the American government's planned port fee on Chinese ships. The vessels owned or operated by American companies or individuals and ships built in the US or flying the American flag would be subject to $56 per net ton fee per voyage if they dock in China. The new port fee would take effect on October 14th, the same day when the United States is due to start imposing port fee on Chinese vessels. Washington and Beijing engaged in a tit-for-tat tariff war earlier this year that threatened to effectively halt trade between the world's two largest economies. Both sides eventually agreed to de-escalate tensions, but the truce has been shaky. The United States on Friday threatened to impose sanctions and take other punitive action on the countries backing the International Maritime Organization's net zero framework proposal. Now, this development comes as members of the London-based International Maritime Organization are set to vote next week on the adoption of the net zero framework agreement aimed at reducing global carbon emissions from the shipping sector. The Trump administration has expressed a strong stance against the framework, asserting that it would lead to increased costs impacting American citizens, energy providers, shipping companies and tourists. In a statement released on Friday, the administration made its position clear, aiming to protect U.S. economic interests against any measures perceived as economically disadvantageous. The White House said on Friday that it had begun mass layoffs of federal workers as the federal shutdown entered into the 11th day on Saturday. With the crisis set to go into a third week and no off-ramp in sight, Trump's budget chief, Russ Vought, announced on social media that the administration was following through on threats to fire some of the 750,000 public servants placed on enforced leaves. Job cuts were underway at the Treasury Department, the U.S. Health Agency, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Departments of Education, Commerce, and Homeland Security Cybersecurity Division. However, the total extent of the layoffs was not immediately clear. Roughly 300,000 federal civilian workers had already been set to leave their jobs this year due to the downsizing campaign initiated earlier this year by Trump. Also, Trump on Friday blamed Democrats for his decision to lay off thousands of workers across the U.S. government as he followed through on his threat to cut the federal workforce during the government shutdown. Trump has repeatedly threatened to fire federal workers during the shutdown standoff. He has also ordered the freezing of at least $28 billion in infrastructure funds for New York, California and Illinois, all home to sizable population of Democratic voters. Massachusetts Institute of Technology President Sally Kornbluth on Friday rejected White House's memo that outlined new conditions for universities to qualify for preferential federal funding. In an open letter to U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon, MIT president said that the memo undermines academic independence. In her letter published on MIT's website, Kornbluth said that the premise of the document is inconsistent with MIT's core belief that scientific funding should be based on scientific merit alone. MIT is the first university to formally reject the proposal. Other institutions, including Brown University, Dartmouth, the University of Virginia, Vanderbilt, the University of Arizona, and the University of South California, said that they were still reviewing the administration's demands. The University of Texas earlier welcomed the initiative. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversees military parade displaying new intercontinental ballistic missile. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado dedicates her Nobel Peace Prize to the people of Venezuela and US President Donald Trump. Post devastating floods in Nepal, situation remains grim in Madhesh even as agencies grapple to provide food, shelter, safe water and protection to children.
can't talk about British imperialism in India without talking about the East India Company.
Britain is just dotted with the visible representations of loot from India. The one thing you folks have never done is just say sorry.
Are you ready to roll?
I'm ready to roll.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's continue getting you more international updates. 19 people were missing and possibly dead after a devastating explosion at a military explosives plant in Tennessee. The explosion at Accurate Energetic Systems occurred at 12:45 GMT. Hampshire County Sheriff Chris Davis said that there were multiple fatalities, but it was still too early to know precisely how many people had perished, saying it was still possible there were some survivors. Investigators from the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms and Explosives were at the scene working to determine the cause of the explosion. Guatemala's IGM Migration Authority received a first flight from the U.S. carrying foreign migrants returned from the United States as well as Guatemalan citizens. 3 Hondurans and 56 Guatemalans migrated had been taken to a migration center. The 3 Hondurans will be transported to their neighboring country. Reportedly, Guatemala's government was open to receiving citizens of other Central American nations who are deported from the U.S. as it seeks to build a positive relationship with the Trump administration. Meanwhile, on Thursday, a U.S. federal judge blocked the Trump administration from deporting Guatemalan unaccompanied minors with active immigration cases after reports revealed that many parents had not consented to return their children. The ruling followed a U.S. attempt in the late August to deport 76 Guatemalan minors, which triggered legal challenges and exposed that most parents were either unreachable or opposed the deportations. NATO will hold its major annual nuclear exercise next week, with an important part of the drill to focus on protecting the weapons before they are ever used. The long-planned Steadfast Noon exercise, which starts on Monday, is taking place amid heightened security around military facilities in Europe due to a series of mysterious drone incidents, some of them blamed on Russia. Steadfast Noon will run for about 2 weeks. It will be led by the Netherlands and involve 71 aircraft from 14 NATO countries. The exercise has been held at roughly the same time each year for over a decade now. Bomber aircraft and fighter jets that can carry nuclear warheads are taking part, but no nuclear weapons or live munitions will be used. The bulk of the exercise is being held in the North Sea, far from Russia and Ukraine. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw a large military parade displaying its new intercontinental ballistic missile in front of visiting international dignitaries. The parade, which began late on October 10th, marked the 80th anniversary of the foundation of its ruling Workers' Party and followed the celebrations on Thursday. In the military parade, nuclear-armed North Korea displayed its most advanced Hwasong-20 intercontinental ballistic missile, described by KCNA as the country's strongest nuclear strategic weapons system. The Hwasong series of ICBMs has given North Korea the capacity to target anywhere on the U.S. mainland, but questions remain over the sophistication of its guidance system to reach a target and the ability of a warhead it carries to withstand atmospheric re-entry. In Seychelles, today is the third and the last day of voting for the presidential election runoff, with polling underway on Seychelles' main island of Mahé on Saturday. Voters are choosing the nation's next leader after neither opposition leader Patrick Hermini and incumbent Wavel Ramkalawan secured the required 50% majority in September's first round. The narrow margin reflects a deeply divided electorate in the East African country. Both candidates have focused their campaigns on key issues, including tourism recovery, sustainable development, and managing the nation's debt burden. The runoff follows a peaceful first round that saw strong voter turnout across the archipelago's inhabited islands. Results are expected within hours of polls closing. The winner will serve a 5-year term, leading the nation known for its pristine beaches and unique biodiversity. 3 people were dead on board after a light plane crashed at an airport in Australia's New South Wales state on Saturday. The plane went down shortly after takeoff, about 85 kilometers south of Sydney. After hitting the ground, the aircraft caught fire, leaving behind charred wreckage on the runway. Emergency services responded quickly, but all the 3 people on board were found dead at the scene. Police have set up a crime scene and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau has been notified and will investigate the cause of the crash. All non-European Union citizens, including British visitors, will travel to and from the bloc using the new biometric entry check system starting operations from Sunday. The entry-exit system, or the EES, will require all non-EU citizens to register their personal details, including fingerprints and facial images, when they first enter the Schengen area. All EU nations, apart from Ireland and Cyprus, plus Iceland, Norway, Switzerland and Liechtenstein. EES will eventually replace passport stamping for all non-EU citizens, helping the bloc track compliance with its visa-free travel rule and strengthen the border controls. The EU will face the new system in over 6 months, meaning different ports and airports may have varying requirements until April 2026. EES is a precursor to an enhanced system, the European Travel Information and Authorization System, which will also require non-Schengen area citizens to pay a fee before they travel. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize on Friday to the people of Venezuela and the US President Donald Trump. Machado, in a social media post, stated that she dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support for Venezuela's pro-democracy movement. Machado has backed Trump's ongoing campaign of military pressure on Maduro, including a major US naval deployment near Venezuela, as a necessary measure towards a democratic transition in Venezuela. Machado was the opposition's presidential candidate for Venezuela's 2024 elections, but Maduro's government blocked her candidacy. Venezuelans living in Buenos Aires gathered outside the closed Venezuelan embassy to celebrate the recognition of Maria Corina Machado's decades-long fight for democracy, as President Javier Milei congratulated the laureate on social media platform X, while Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum opted for a neutral response, citing a constitutional mandate. Global weather updates now. Heavy rainfall in Mexico has left nearly 30 people dead and many missing as downpour triggered several landslides, power cuts off and rivers to burst their banks. Civil protection authorities in Hidalgo confirmed the destruction of at least 1,000 homes and hundreds of schools. Mexico's civil defense authorities reported intense rainfall in 31 of the 32 states, with the worst affected areas being Veracruz in the east. The Ministry of Defense said it had deployed over 5,400 personnel to help monitor, evacuate and clean up the affected areas. Meanwhile, storms Raymond and Priscilla have been dumping rains on Baja California Peninsula and the country's western Pacific seaboard. Strong winds and fog were reported on Saba Island, a Dutch territory, as tropical storm Jerry swept through the Caribbean on Friday. The storm caused disruption on the roads and left hundreds of customers without power. Schools were shut and public transport and boat connections between the islands were cancelled. The storm prompted authorities to issue a red alert for Guadeloupe, but the warnings have now been lowered to heavy rain and thunderstorms. In Philippines, dazed survivors of a pair of major earthquakes in the southern region awoke on Saturday to scenes of devastation after hundreds of aftershocks rocked the region overnight. Many coastal residents of Mindanao Island had slept outdoors, fearful of being crushed to death by aftershocks of the 7.4 and 6.7 magnitude quakes that struck off the coast within hours of each other on Friday. Philippine authorities said at least 8 people were killed, but they were still assessing the extent of the damage. In Nepal, children are at the center of the crisis in rural communities in southern areas affected by floods and landslides caused by torrential rains last weekend. World Vision Nepal said on Friday that recovery efforts are underway, but the needs in the rural areas of Madhya province remain severe. The humanitarian organization emphasized on the urgency of providing food, shelter, safe water and protection for children, noting their increased vulnerability in disasters. Flooding in the region has occurred for the second consecutive year, compounding the challenges faced by affected communities. Let's take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world now. The restored Ahmed Bey Palace in La Marsa, Tunisia, hosts Italian Renaissance, an exhibition on Italian influence in Tunisian architecture. Running until October 12th, the show highlights Italian impact from Medina's religious sites to 19th century districts and rural areas. Built in 1847 by Count Giuseppe Raffo, the palace itself showcases Italian styles. China's Palace Museum has opened the once hidden Quanglong Garden to the public for its 100th anniversary. The garden, part of the Forbidden City, showcases Qing Dynasty architecture and traditional designs. Rare historic paintings are now preserved with modern technology. The centennial was marked by a major symposium celebrating the museum's role in preserving Chinese heritage. The Sichuan Millennial Migratory Route in Jiangxi, China, is at its peak migration season. Thousands of egrets fill the skies above tea plantations and still lakes. The pathway has become a protected golden corridor due to growing conservation efforts, offering a safe passage to the migratory birds. You're watching DD India News. Are waiting for a short break, but after the break, the nation pays heartfelt tribute to Jayaprakash Narayan on the birth anniversary of the Lok Nayak. International Day of the Girl Child observed today to recognize girls and elevate their voices worldwide. A musical drama on Prime Minister Modi enthralls spectators in Gujarat.
गर फिरदौस बर्रुए ज़मी अस्त हमी अस्तो हमी अस्तो हमी अस्त Jammu and Kashmir, nature's finest works. A land of verdant valleys, pristine lakes, striking autumns, unforgettable majestic beauty. A place of unwavering devotion, wholehearted smiles, and warm hospitality. World famous for its exquisite artistry. Leader in diverse agricultural products. Heartland of winter sports. Jammu and Kashmir is vibrant, diverse, ambitious, future-focused, full of life, Welcome to Heaven on Earth.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories now. Displaced residents begin returning to northern Gaza following Israel-Hamas truce. US troops already based in West Asia to help monitor the situation in Gaza. US President Donald Trump reignites tariff war with China, announces an additional 100% tariff on the goods, threatens to pull out of talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. US federal shutdown enters into the 11th day. Mass layoffs begin in various US government departments. Trump orders freezing of infrastructure funds for New York, California and Illinois. Eyeing farmer welfare and rural development, Prime Minister Modi launches Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana and the mission for Atmanirbharta in Pulses initiative to boost productivity, storage and credit access. In a landmark push to India's agriculture and allied sectors, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today launched the schemes worth around $4 billion during a special Krishi program in New Delhi. A key highlight of the event was the launch of the PM Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana. The scheme aims to enhance the agricultural productivity, promote crop diversification, boost post-harvest storage infrastructure and improve access to credit in 100 selected districts. Prime Minister Modi also launched the mission for Atmanirbharta in Pulses. This initiative seeks to increase pulse productivity, expand cultivation areas, strengthen the value chain and minimize post-harvest losses. In addition, Prime Minister Modi also inaugurated and dedicated to the nation various projects in agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries and food processing sectors. Prime Minister Modi also interacted with farmers engaged with pulses cultivation who have directly benefited from the various government schemes. So here we see Prime Minister interacting with the farmers and the idea of the Prime Minister to take forward the welfare schemes for the farmers to ensure doubling of the income of the farmers. In line with that and rural development, we see Prime Minister Narendra Modi today launch 2 schemes for holistic welfare of the farmers. This will prove to be a great push for India's agriculture and allied sectors. Later, addressing a public gathering, the Prime Minister reaffirmed the government's commitment to agricultural growth, rural development and farmer welfare.
आज देश का मिजाज ऐसा बन गया है कि वो कुछ उपलब्धियों से ही संतुष्ट नहीं होता है। हमें विकसित बनता है तो फिर हर क्षेत्र में लगातार बेहतर करते ही रहना होगा, सुधार करना ही करना होगा। इसी सोच का परिणाम है पीएम धन धान्य कृषि योजना। और इस योजना की प्रेरणा बनी है आकांक्षी जिला योजना की सफलता। पहले की सरकारें देश के 100 से अधिक जिलों को पिछड़ा घोषित करके भूल गई थी। हमने उन जिलों पर विशेष ध्यान केंद्रित किया, उनको आकांक्षी जिला घोषित किया। इन जिलों में बदलाव का हमारा मंत्र था कन्वर्जेंस, कोलैबोरेशन और कंपटीशन। यानी पहले हर सरकारी विभाग अलग अलग योजनाओं जिले के हर नागरिक सबको जोड़ो, फिर सबका प्रयास के भाव से काम करो और उसके बाद बाकी जिलों के साथ स्वस्थ स्पर्धा करो। इस अप्रोच का फायदा आज दिख रहा है।
President of Mongolia, Khurelsukh Ukhnaaw, will pay a state visit to India from October 13th. The Mongolian President will be visiting India at the invitation of President Draupadi Murmu. He will be accompanied by a high-level delegation comprising of cabinet ministers, members of parliament, senior officials, business leaders and cultural representatives. This will be President Khurelsuk's first visit to India in his capacity as the head of state of Mongolia. During the visit, President Murmu will meet her Mongolian counterpart and host a banquet in his honor. President Khurelsuk will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and review the entire gamut of bilateral relations. Diplomatic relations between India and Mongolia were established in 1955. Over the past 7 decades, the two countries have developed a close and multifaceted partnership anchored in shared cultural and spiritual links and democratic values. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today held a wonderful meeting with President and CEO of Qualcomm, Cristiano Amon, in New Delhi. They discussed India's strides in AI, innovation and skilling. Prime Minister said it is great to see Qualcomm's commitment towards India's semiconductor and AI missions. India offers unmatched talent and scale to build technologies that will shape India and Qualcomm's collective future. CEO Cristiano, on his part, thanked Prime Minister Modi for the great conversation on fostering a broader partnership in support of India AI and India semiconductor missions, as well as the transition to 6G. He said that the company is encouraged by the opportunities to develop an Indian ecosystem across AI smartphones, PCs, smart glasses, auto industrial sectors and more. India's Minister for Power and Housing and Urban Affairs, Manohar Lal, continued a series of high-level engagements on the sidelines of the G20 Energy Transition Ministerial meetings in Zimbabwe, South Africa. The minister held bilateral meetings with his counterparts from South Africa and Denmark, focusing on the ways to strengthen cooperation in renewable energy, sustainable urban development and clean technology innovation. The discussions come as part of India's broader commitment to global collaboration in building a just and inclusive energy future. Nazneen Ismail gets us more.
Here at the Energy Transitions Ministerial meeting in Zimbabwe, it's been a day of diplomacy and dialogue as India continues to build strong global partnerships in energy and sustainability. India's Minister of Power and Housing and Urban Affairs, Manohar Lal Khattar, held bilateral meetings with his counterparts from South Africa and Denmark, focusing on deepening cooperation in clean energy, renewable technology, and urban infrastructure. In his discussions with South Africa, the emphasis was on collaboration in power generation, smart housing initiatives, and capacity building, strengthening a partnership rooted in both history and shared development goals.
I want to start by thanking you that our SOE ESCOM, now as I speak to you, has sent a number of technicians and engineers to India through a bilateral cooperation we have with you to train our engineers and technicians on the FGD. So we are eternally grateful for that. In fact, the group, there is a second group that's in India. So I want to say thank you very much for your positive disposition to us in the country.
India's energy landscape is dynamic and rapidly evolving, driven by robust economic growth, urbanization, and the rising aspiration of over 1.4 billion people. India is making significant progress towards 500 gigawatt renewable capacity by 2030. Energy efficiency improvement, transmission capacity expansion, and key initiatives like the ethanol blending program, National Green Hydrogen Mission, PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, and the Nuclear Energy Mission.
With Denmark, talks centered on green energy innovation, offshore wind projects, and sustainable urban solutions, building on the strong momentum of the India-Denmark Green Strategic Partnership.
This time was when I was 18, and at that time India was, I think, 400 million people, and your electricity system was very weak. And coming back 2 years ago, visiting India, now you have more than 1 billion, and you have provided electricity for almost all of your population. I hope it makes you proud. And at least it makes me very humble that you have been capable to handle such a enormous increase in the demand, of course, but also that you have secured energy for such a broad part of your population.
Both meetings highlighted India's growing leadership in driving an inclusive and just energy transition, ensuring that clean technology and sustainable growth remain accessible to all. From the calm shores of Zimbabwe, I'm Nazneen for DD India, South Africa, where global partnerships are shaping a greener tomorrow.
President Draupadi Murmu is on a 3-day visit to Gujarat. Today, on the second day of her visit, the President held darshan at Dwarkadhish temple and offered prayers for the well-being and prosperity of all. This spiritual visit forms a key part of her itinerary before she proceeds to Ahmedabad, where she will attend the 71st convocation ceremony of Gujarat Vidyapeeth as the chief guest. The President's visit underscores a blend of spiritual, cultural and academic engagements in the state. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jayaprakash, today met Ambassador-designate Sergio Gore of the US today in New Delhi. The two leaders discussed the India-US relationship and its global significance. Dr. S. Jayaprakash extended wishes to Gore for his new responsibility. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri also met Sergio Gore. They had a productive exchange on the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership and its shared priorities. Foreign Secretary Misri wished Ambassador-designate Gore all success for his assignment. Sergio Gore's week-long India visit started on Thursday. This is his first visit to India after being appointed as the next ambassador to India. 38-year-old Gore is also the youngest US ambassador to India. He is one of the closest aides of US President Donald Trump. October 11th is observed every year as the International Day of the Girl Child, as declared by the UNICEF, a global occasion to honor girls around the world, amplify their voices and promote their leadership. Take a look at this report.
October 11th is celebrated annually as the International Day of the Girl Child to recognize girls and elevate their voices worldwide. The theme this year is The Girl I Am, The Change I Lead, Girls on the Front Lines of Crisis, which highlights girls' leadership in crisis situations. According to UNICEF, 122 million girls worldwide are out of school, including 34 million girls at the primary level and 87 million at the secondary. At the same time, the gender gap in global labor force participation still persists. Women's participation in the labor force is significantly lower than men, with the gap being 26% in South Asia, 20% in West Asia and North Africa, 53% in Latin America, and 59% in East Asia. With 2025 marking 3 decades since the Beijing Declaration, it is time for the world to assess whether the goals of gender equality set back then have genuinely been met. At the same time, girls around the world are stepping up to face today's biggest challenges. They are raising their voices for climate justice and demanding an end to violence globally. Today, women are confident problem solvers, striving to become self-reliant in every field. India has always prioritized welfare of girls. Schemes such as Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao and Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana have been launched nationwide. These initiatives not only aim to empower Indian women, but also ensure equal rights for them. Consequently, India has been steadily advancing its position in the Global Gender Gap Report year after year. Meanwhile, UNICEF is working with girl-led groups and networks at the global level to help create a world where girls' voices are not only heard in policy-making programs and humanitarian response, but are also acted upon. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. Union Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnav inspected the newly constructed holding areas in the New Delhi railway station on Saturday. During the inspection, he said that ticketing counters have been improved and the changes will be appropriately tested during the festival surge the station experiences every year. The event Run for Empowerment under Mission Shakti 5.0 was organized on Saturday in Uttar Pradesh. The run aims to raise awareness about empowering women, promoting self-reliance and dignified living. In Gandhinagar, the audience was captivated by a grand musical drama named Mera Desh Pehle, the untold story of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Artists and viewers praised the show's powerful storytelling, visuals and music. Spectators lauded the production for beautifully portraying Prime Minister Modi's journey and inspiring patriotism. A quick break ahead. You're watching DD India News Hour. But after the break, in Arctic Open Badminton Tournament, Anmol Kharb shines as he makes it to the top 4 of the BW Super 500 Badminton Tournament. And rare Nelu bloom returns to Sri Lanka's Houghton Plains after 12 years.
Construction isn't just about steel and concrete. It can also be about restoring a hillside or creating homes that can protect both us and our planet.
This wattle and daub technique is called skin and bone of a structure. So here we have used bamboos cut into strips and weaved together as made as a panel. In that cap we fill it with mud and make it as a skin for it.
The trucks would just come by, dump the illegal waste and leave. Then we got some people to help and our Anand Van urban forest team came into existence. Together we must have cleared about 30 to 40 tons of garbage out of this place.
One of the reasons for this structure that we have created here is to try and see if we can halt or reduce the rate of erosion. This is like a natural embankment for the forest land.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Only 2 leaders achieved saintly status during their lifetime. One was Mahatma Gandhi and the other was Jayaprakash Narayan. As a result, when JP returned to active politics in 1974 with the cry, "Leave the throne, the people are coming," the entire nation followed him like a saint. Let's trace the journey of Lok Naik in this report.
With his thoughts, philosophy, lofty ideals and unique personality, Lok Naik Jayaprakash Narayan not only shaped the nation's course but also awakened the imagination of the common man. The Total Revolution, also known as the JP movement, was the first major mass movement in independent India, shaking Indira Gandhi's government, giving birth to a new generation of leaders and striving to bring honesty to political life. Jayaprakash Narayan was born on 11th of October 1902 in Sitabdiara village in Saran district, Bihar. JP Narayan left his village at the age of 9 to study at Collegiate School in Patna. In 1920, at the age of 18, he married Prabhavati Devi. He went to the United States in 1922 for higher education. To pay for his studies in America, he worked in farms, companies and hotels. He earned his BA and MA degrees from the United States. After returning from America, Jayaprakash Narayan joined the Indian National Congress in 1929. He was imprisoned in 1932 for his active participation in the civil disobedience movement against British rule. During his imprisonment in Nashik jail in 1932, he came into contact with several socialist leaders. In December 1939, as General Secretary of the Congress Socialist Party, Jayaprakash called on the people to take advantage of World War II to stop British exploitation in India and overthrow the British government. For this reason, the British imprisoned him again for 9 months. When the Quit India movement began in 1942, JP Narayan led movement along with Ram Manohar Lohia and Aruna Asif Ali. JP Narayan was arrested and imprisoned in Hazaribagh Central Jail. He escaped from prison with 6 of his comrades. JP Narayan actively worked underground for the independence movement. He formed Azad Dasta in Nepal to fight the atrocities of the British rule. In the early 70s, when the common people of the country were suffering from unemployment, inflation and a corrupt government system, a different side of JP was revealed. In 1974, students in Gujarat requested Jayaprakash Narayan to lead Nav Nirman movement. In June of that year, he called for a peaceful total revolution at a public meeting. For his significant role in total revolution, he earned the title of Lok Naik. Total revolution led to emergency and formation of first non-Congress government. While imprisoned during the emergency, his health deteriorated significantly, leading to his release on 12th of November 1976. Jayaprakash Narayan died in Patna on October 1979 due to kidney failure. In 1965, he was awarded the Max Essay Award for public service. The Vajpayee government posthumously awarded him the country's highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna, in 1999. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now we turn focus to sports. We'll talk of cricket. India declared their innings at a formidable 518 for 5 on day 2 of the second test against West Indies at Arun Jaitley Stadium in New Delhi. The foundation for this huge total was laid by captain Shubman Gill, who scored his 10th test century for India and his first on home soil as the test captain. Gill also combined effectively with Dhruv Jurel for an important 102-run partnership. Opener Yashasvi Jaiswal set the tone for the run fest with a fantastic 175-run inning. Sai Sudarshan also contributed with a gritty 87. Indian bowlers made sure West Indies don't get a good start as Ravindra Jadeja provided hosts with their first wicket of the day, dismissing John Campbell for 10. Our correspondent Narayan is joining us to get us more. Narayan, help us understand how do we expect the match to further progress. It was when we given the details of the second day innings to our viewers. You tell us what next.
Preeti, if we take a look, it's looking a one-sided, lopsided match as the first match happened in Ahmedabad. The second match at the Arun Jaitley Stadium is going in that same line. Again, a dominant performance by the India. If we take a look, scoring more than 500 runs, and now the West Indies team is struggling again. Something that is not good for the Test cricket, something that is not good for the West Indies cricket, and something that is not good for the format of the game, especially if one-sided matches will take place with low intensity, with no competition. Definitely, it take away the audiences from the raw format of the game, that is test format, which tests the strength of a team, which really tests the skills of a team. So I think the West Indies team should take an introspection, talk to the veterans, the West Indies veterans. We know they dominated the game in the late 70s and 80s. We know that what kind of legacy they have in the cricket and the kind of domination the West Indies team have in the late 70s and in 80s. No team have dominated the game so much, and such a great team is faltering in such the longest format of the game. Definitely, it's not good for the fans too. Fans are also not happy that they are witnessing a one-sided match against a team like West Indies who once dominated the game. But right now, I think West Indies team should sit with the greats of the game, the players like Gary Sober, the Clive Lloyd, and Viv Richards, who we all know that if you will make a list of the top 10 batsers, top 10 bowlers, definitely top 5 from the West Indies be in that list. So I think they should talk to their greats and should try to bring their game, the glory days back again, so that the Test cricket should remain alive for the West Indies team. And nowadays we are also hearing that from different corners, people and the cricket experts are saying that there should be the 2-tier system in the Test cricket. So that's we're hoping that the West Indies team take a lesson from Indian team how to take their game forward.
All right, Narayan, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details. And from cricket, we turn focus to badminton. India's Anmol Karp sailed into the semi-finals of the Arctic Open Badminton Tournament in Finland. Now, this is the first time the 18-year-old has made it to the top 4 of a BWF Super 500 badminton tournament. The Indian badminton player beat Danish Amalie Skulls for 21-15, 21-14 in just 36 minutes. This was Karp's third straight victory over Amalie Skulls. The previous two came at last year's Polish and Belgian international tournaments. Meanwhile, Dhruv Kapila and Tanisha Krasto had to bow out after losing their quarterfinal match. And with the rare Nelu blossoms painting Sri Lanka's autumn plains in vibrant shades after 12 long years, nature once again reminds us of its timeless magic. Visitors are urging to tread lightly and respectfully in this sacred ecosystem. The next bloom may be more than a decade away, but the memories made today can last a lifetime. With those beautiful visuals, we end this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. Now, this app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can download the respective QR codes. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.